Of Telangana Chambers of Commerce and Industry. I take this opportunity to welcome you all to today's program, National Symposium on Climate Change Impact on Indian Manufacturing, Policy Change Agenda in Energy and Production. Thank you so much, Mr. Indrasen Reddy, for reaching out to our president and also the federation and thinking that FTCCI would be the right partner for this program. And as we discussed, I think this is just the beginning, just a precursor, but we have a long agenda together for sure. Just for the information of you who are non-members, we are at our 105th year journey, and all the events that are curated at the federation, we are very mindful of that, which supports the whole industrial ecosystem. So of course, climate and environment change is one of the committee which goes hand in hand with our industrial development committee as well. So we have that mandate. And I think end of the day, I think all the programs that we plan, end of the day, it's very, very important of how much each one of us can contribute towards the climate change, So I think, we've done series of programs, and it's just the commitment that's needed and the push, which I'm sure the federation can do it, from our end. And before we begin the session, for some of our non-members, also for you, Mr. Reddy, we would like to show a film about FTCCI, which will give you an overview of what we do.
1917, the year when a dedicated organization, the Deccan Chamber of Commerce, was formed to encourage trade and commerce activities. The historical journey of the organization has witnessed great transformation as per the changing needs of the industry and businesses. The Federation of Telangana Chambers of Commerce and Industry, FTCCI, a legacy of excellence, voice of the industry, representing interests of over 25,000 businesses of all sizes, sectors and regions, is empowering industry and trade of Telangana state. A world leader in pharma, a global hub for vaccine, home to all major MNCs, leader in IT exports, and emerging first stop of India. FTCCI advocates a pro-business environment, caters to the needs of MSMEs, budding entrepreneurs, and traders through its advisory services in taxation, market information, industry-related issues, B2B connection. The Chamber has its nominees in the state-level advisory committees to help drive business productivity. FTCCI aids in providing certificate of origin for exporters, issues visa recommendation for business travels. The Federation imparts job skills through its dedicated skill center. It has adopted 14 government ITIs to improve the employability of students. With a uniquely global perspective, the FTCCI events reach a highly engaged audience, policymakers and stakeholders aiming towards Atmanirbhar Bharat.
FTCCI to work with government, tell us and guide us कि हम लोग क्या कर सकते हैं to remain competitive, to remain better than our competition. FTCCI for joining us, and I thank the office bearers of FTCCI for inviting me. Jai Telangana, Jai Hind.
Come and be a part of this dynamic and proactive organization. Together, let's realize the vision for a progressive future.
Thank you so much. I now invite the dignitaries to please come up onto the stage. I request the President to please bring our dignitaries, the chief guest, the guest of honor onto the stage. We have with us Dr. Narasimha Reddy Donti, Policy Expert and Climate Change Campaigner. Mr. Rajashekar Madipatla, Senior Journalist. Dr. K. Babu Rao, retired scientist from Indian Institute of Chemical Technology. We also have Mr. B. Indrasen Reddy, environmentalist and entrepreneur, and Mr. G. Bala Subramaniam, the chair of the Environment Committee. Before we begin the session, I request President Mr. Anil Agarwal to present plant to all our dignitaries onto the stage. You're already spreading so much of green because the whole year you'll be giving plants to everyone. Yeah. I now invite President Mr. Anil Agarwal to deliver the welcome address.
Shri B. Indrasen Reddy, environmentalist and entrepreneur. Dr. K. Babu Rao ji, retired scientist. Dr. K. Babu Rao ji, retired scientist, Indian Institute of Chemical Technology. Dr. Narasimha Reddy ji, policy expert and climate change campaigner. Mr. Rajshekhar Madipatla, senior journalist. G. Bala Subramaniam, chair of our Environment Committee, was senior vice president Mila Jaydev, vice president Suresh Singalji, managing committee members, past presidents. Very good afternoon to all of you. On behalf of the Federation of Telangana Chamber of Commerce and Industry, it gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all to the event on climate change, impacts on Indian manufacturing, policy chain agenda in energy and production. We are organizing this event as a curtain raiser to the COP COP27, the 27th Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. It is scheduled to be held in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt from 6 to 18th November 2022. Climate change is one of the most important problems we are facing today. We are seeing today also in Hyderabad, it doesn't used to rain in the month of October, November. Now it is raining till today, it is raining. I used to remember when I was a kid or maybe in the early young days, June 7th was the day when Mirak, they used to call it as the Mirak. Arey Mirak aa gaya hai, pani aayega, ye aayega. And in Hyderabad, there used to be on June 7th, they used to give one fish medicine for asthmatic patients. That was the time when we have seen that time. But right now, in the month of June, hardly we see any rains. It is prolonging and rain starts. Previously, the rain used to be from June to August. Now it is, I think, late July it is starting and it is continuing up to till today. So that is the effect of climate change only. And in continuation to this program, manufacturing is going to affect by the climate change. And since India, under the leadership of Honorable Prime Minister, under his aegis of Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, we have launched Make in India program, which aims to position India on the world map as a leader in manufacturing and give global recognition to the Indian economy. This climate change will not only affect manufacturing, but also agriculture will also be affected, and health issues may also come up, and it will have an impact on the health also. The overall economic losses due to climate change is estimated to be about 2% of India's GDP by 2050. So now is the time when India need to act for preventing the country from losing economic potential by 2050 due to lack of proper effort against climate change. And this session will discuss the impact on climate change on our Indian manufacturing and the need to have a policy change. I hope there will be a deliberation, and we will with this deliberation we can it is a curtain raiser for COP27, and we can with the experts we can have a good deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, I invite Mr. G. Balasubramaniam, Chair of FTCCI Environment Committee, to deliver introductory remarks.
Good evening, friends, on the dais and off the dais, and all the speakers, experts who came to participate and share their experience. I would like to welcome once again. I welcome one and all to this program related to climate change, and appreciate FTCCI and Justice B. Sudarshan Reddy Memorial Foundation for taking this initiative in organizing this event, which is very important, as already the President has already explained its importance. I would like to say climate change is globally well accepted phenomena. So there are a lot of aspects, issues will be there. Some people may accept it, some people may debate it. But this is one of the things which has been globally accepted. Yes, climate change is threatened to one and all. The world had started seeing the negative impacts due to climate change. The statistical numbers and predictions may have some debate. So what is the extent of damage, or which areas will get damaged? Probably there may be a little debate, the numbers, etc. But the need for addressing the climate change with impact mitigation planning by all the stakeholders is well accepted. Only thing is how to prioritize it and how to accept it, the priority, and take it forward. You are all aware that the Honorable Prime Minister has already announced 5 goals for addressing the climate change by India in the last year. Briefly, I would like to say one is increase in renewable energy component to 50% of total energy requirements by 2030. But the very important point is to deliberate how to take it forward. What are the challenges? Even before we start the meeting, some of the speakers or some of the participants, the same thing was saying, why we could not take it forward, what are the challenges, what are the gaps, what are the different perceptions. I assume that everybody is correct in their perception, but how to minimize the gap and how to take it forward. I am sure today's presentation will throw some light on this. And the second goal was reducing carbon intensity by 45% by 2030. It will have a very serious implications, especially to the manufacturing industry. Of course, right now there is not a mandatory or regulated. It's probably in course of time the government may insist also. So energy conservation, management, and auditing is very important. I am focusing with the industry sector. How to integrate in a day-to-day planning and operation with reference to energy conservation, whether the industry is in-house, inbuilt systems are there, or they need to strengthen, etc. Competency development for all the stakeholders, not only industry, in the policy makers and policy implementers also. Having the policy is one thing, and how to take it forward, how to handholding. Probably these type of workshops may share some of the information. And third is increasing non-fossil fuel energy capacity to reach 500 gigawatts by 2030. Fourth is reducing the total projected carbon emissions by 1 billion tons starting now till 2030. And fifth is achieving the net zero by 2070. Maybe the ultimate goal. I am sure today's program is very useful to all the stakeholders, especially to the industry sector and the authorities. Very briefly, I would like to introduce today's structure of the program and also the speaker. Because of the paucity of the time, just I would like to go very quickly. I would like to introduce the first speaker, Dr. Narsimha Reddy Garu. a policy expert and climate change campaigner. Thank you, sir, for coming to share your information. A passionate campaigner and a climate crisis and ecology on climate crisis, ecology and environment. He was a board member of IFOM Asia International Organization, member of Cotton Advisory Board Committee and Advisory Council for Textile Exchange, a global non-profit. He is also on steering council of International Campaign on Golden Rice. His work has been multidisciplinary, including agriculture, textile, water, urban development, and other areas of policy work. He is an author, public speaker, and guiding students and volunteers on their activities, including PhD and other researchers. Thank you, Dr. Narasimha Reddy Garu, for coming forward to share your thoughts. And he will be making a presentation on CDP commitments, challenges for Indian manufacturing. It's a very important for us. Then I would like to introduce Mr. Rajashekar, a senior journalist with primary interest in energy, environment, and climate. He won the Bala Kailasan Memorial Award, the Raman Tata Goenka Excellence in Journalism Award, and 5 Sri Ram Awards for Excellence in Financial Journalism. Thank you, Mr. Rashid Garu. He will be making a presentation, Can India Capitalize on Decarbonization? It's a very interesting topic. Thank you once again. Now, I would like to introduce the third speaker, Dr. K. Babu Rao, a retired senior scientist from Indian Institute of Chemical Technology from our Hyderabad. He will be making the presentation on Indian manufacturing, climate crisis, energy transformation. Thank you, Dr. Babu Rao Garu. Fourth speaker will be Mr. B. Indrasen Reddy, environmentalist and entrepreneur. He is a founder and managing director, 4 Solar Energy System Private Limited, and trustee for Justice B. Subhashan Reddy Memorial Foundation, having a 27 years of experience. Thank you very much. He will be making the presentation on sustainable development through renewable energy. I personally thank President Sri Anil Agarwal and all the office bearers and officers of the Federation for giving the opportunity. I am sure today's program will have a very useful discussion and helping all the stakeholders. I will close my talk with a simple quote, which I strongly believe: think globally and act locally. It's a high time for each one may be individual and organization, to think one step which we can begin right now. Thanks for the opportunity. I am sure this program will have a very useful deliberation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now, I invite Dr. Narasimha Reddy Donti, policy expert and climate change campaigner, to please give a presentation on COP commitments, challenges for Indian manufacturing.
Thank you. Thank you all. I think we were expecting a lot of FTCCI members, but still no problem, because this is a beginning. I don't think even India has not woken up yet to the problem of climate crisis. So I think FTCCI members are part of India. They are still yet to learn that what is going to hit them. It is going to hit them, everyone, not only them. So they'll learn hard way. But I think I'll like to congratulate FTCCI for stepping forward and organizing this cut and riser meeting. And I request them to be with us for the duration of the COP27, November 6 to 18. We have a series of activities with a network of organizations. So it will involve a lot of discussions on different dimensions of climate crisis. It will be every day we'll have 3 events. So I request all of you and also the FTCCI to be part of this effort, so that we can reach out as many people as possible, because we are behind. They should have had a leap in our thinking and our action when it comes to climate crisis. As Ms. Kathy was mentioning, we are all contributing to climate change. but we are not contributing to climate action. I think that is required, and I hope these kind of workshops, symposiums will help in evolving a plan individually and also at a association level or network level and also sectoral level, so that we are not left behind, and we will not end up as victims of climate crisis, because that is what is happening. And Indian manufacturers are, if they are not going to respond, they are also going to be victims of crisis, even though their contribution to emissions is also a problem which is very, very important and which we need to discuss. Next. So basically, this is we are discussing in the context of conference of parties, that is shortly called COP. We started in 1995, and every year, almost every year, conference is happening on what to do, how to do, when to do. But I think the most serious effort started with 2015 Paris COP meeting. So I think there a broad kind of understanding has emerged, so that every country will take up action to reduce the emissions from that country. So I think that is a crucial milestone in this COP conference of parties. So there, I think along with this COP, we are seeing IPCC reports, International Panel on Climate Change. They have been continuously giving reports. IPCC reports have been warning us about the impending climate crisis. Even the most recent August report, which we are going to see, August report, August 2022, they are saying we are not on track. Actually, we should have been far ahead on the track, but we are not even on the track to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees. So the result we are seeing in the last 3-4 years, where we are seeing extreme drought in certain parts of the world, and in India, extreme drought we are seeing in Uttar Pradesh this year, Jharkhand, West Bengal, parts of the West Bengal, and suddenly within 1 month in Uttar Pradesh, 650% raise in the water rainfall, just within 1 month. Until 6 months back, it was a drought. The people thought they have lost their agriculture season. Then when the rain started, they started sowing, and now it is completely, the pendulum has moved to the other side. So these extreme weather events are happening all over, including Hyderabad. But unfortunately, the policy makers are not recognizing the problem. We are busy with elections. We are busy with fighting each other. Political parties dominate media discussion. We are not at even sink our teeth into the problem. I think that is a very serious problem we are having. So you can see the prediction shows that we, these have been questioned also. Earlier, they said that 2 degrees we might reach by 2050, but now we might reach in within 2 years or 3 years also. So 2030 target for many of the commitments are being questioned, and we are nowhere beginning to understand the problem at all. So I think serious issues are coming up. People are dying. Climate victims are increasing, but we are not at awake to this problem. So I think other speakers are there. I'm not going into detail. The major problem is carbon in the atmosphere. I think why carbon is increasing in the atmosphere, we all know, because we are burning fossil fuels left, right, and everywhere, and that has been happening for the past 200 years. But increasingly, the carbon in atmosphere is increasing as we are destroying environment which the cycles, natural carbon cycles which take carbon is being destroyed, like oceans, forests. We are destroying them in lakhs of acres. Since COP26 and COP27, between now, last 6 months in Brazil, they said area as big as France has been deforested. So this deforestation, even though on the one side we are saying it is a major problem, but on the other side people continue to do what they want to do. So the top emitters we can see the countries. We are also part of that. India is now emerging as one of the top emitters of the carbon emissions. So I think that recognition has to be included in parliament or legislation, but ultimately legislatures, but it's not happening. Now, one of the, I think this is, there are different data sets. One data set shows which country is contributing how much. So the biggest are China, USA, and India. So India is one of the major emitters. So, resource consumption, fossil fuel consumption, and ultimately the result in terms of emissions is because of that consumption. And China, you can see, we don't have this kind of data within our country, even though there are several authors in IPCC from India. Indian data sets are still emerging. I think a lot of data needs to come about the sectoral contributions. Here you can see the global, division of sector-wise, how much emissions are happening. So the biggest is the energy, and next is agriculture. But again, this comes from a perspective of the developed countries. So we need to again look at our own perspective, because emissions data is questioned in several places, and even in COP there is now a major discussion is happening about reporting format, standardizing the report format, because just for the sake of negotiations or to jockey their position, each one is trying to give their own data. But ultimately we can see that energy in the form of fossil fuels, in the form of production, I think a lot of energy is being used, and that energy is leading to emissions. Now, among the sectors, I think the major sector you can see is industry, 21%. So this is where I think we need to sit up and understand where we can reduce emissions within the industry. And in India, of course, there are some parlays happening, but it is not deep enough. Basically, CII or FAPSI or all these chambers of commerce, they are still not into this kind of discussion. I'm rushing through because we have speakers and I have less time. So one of the COP26 expectations, several expectations came last year when Glasgow meeting happened. And one is about the progress in terms of nationally determined commitments. Each country, they are given their commitments to reduce emissions by 2030, by 2050 or 2070. So each one have set their own voluntary commitments, and though the progress in those commitments were expected in COP26 last year, and people were asking for more ambitious goals. Whatever goals were set by them, the pressure is for more ambitious goals, because we are seeing that change coming very fast. So people want more ambitious goals. And of course, adaptation is being discussed, where people want to adapt to the climate change or whatever consequences of the climate change. But that is again a controversial or very contested discussion is happening on adaptation. Who has to adopt and who is contributing to the these emissions. So there is a lot of discussion. Africa and small countries, ocean, countries, small countries with ocean islands, they are now already facing the problem because of climate crisis, and they are asking for response from liability, accountability from countries which are contributing to emissions. Of course, mitigation is a major issue, but mitigation is being sequestered, the discussion into only technology. So carbon capture or carbon credit mechanisms, I think a lot of the discussion is again is being sequestered into certain areas where it helps the current economic structure to continue its extractive economy rather than change, a complete change, a basic change. Loss and damage is another major area. Of course, Paris rule book is again, they thought they'll complete it by COP26, but I think it's going to come up in COP27. Climate finance was promised $100 billion, but even today, I think not even $10 billion was released. And there is now a lot of discussion on what is climate finance, who has to give how much is again issue. And as I mentioned, reporting format is also a question because there is no standardized format. Each one is trying to contribute in their own way. I'll come to the main question because I'm rushing. So India committed nationally determined commitments and they were updated. We committed in 2015. They were updated recently in August 2022. Now, you might have heard Prime Minister giving lifestyle for environment, LIFE, all those things are given. But, the last one you see, to build capacities, create domestic framework and international architecture. Now, I think FTCCI should sit and discuss this because where is the domestic framework? Who is preparing this? I think this is where we all can contribute, and this is where the membership of all the FTCCA or all other industry bodies, I think they should contribute. But right now, I don't think we have a framework at all to discuss. So we need to go details into that. So in terms of which sector contributing what, we know energy, land use, industry, urban, buildings, transport, these are all related. And I'm sure there are many people as part of this FTCCA who are related to all of these sectors. So I think these are the core sectors where we need to reduce emissions. Now these last two slides, I think this is a crucial slide I want to discuss. One, what is the change agenda? One, the energy change. We have to change our energy sources, and their decarbonization strategies are being discussed. There's a lot of literature on that, but we are still lagging behind in renewable energy. Even though government said by 2030 we'll have 300 gigawatts of solar energy. That means now I think some 60 gigawatts of installed capacity or committed capacity is there, but actual production is still less. So every year I think now it has to go up to at least 100 gigawatts or more, if you want to reach ambitious goals. But the Electricity Amendment Act and the various other related policies, I think they are still not enough to facilitate such change towards more renewable sources of energy. Second, of course, raw material change. I think industry needs to seriously look at to change the raw materials and away from the fossil fuel based raw materials. I think that is what is going to help because when we are talking of reducing the emissions of manufacturing sector, raw material change is a very basic requirement. Product change is also there, of course. Most of us, they are used to producing products which, fit to the consumptive lifestyle, and also because of those products, we have an extractive economy which, leads to mining, more mining, so continuous mining. So I think we need to look at the product change as well, because when you are talking of a general consumer, we tell them not to use such and such product, but those products are available because it is being produced continuously. Because some people say, last time we had a workshop here on plastics, so their association president said, oh, some 1 lakh people are dependent on this, so we can't stop production. So I think we need to think of how to change that so that their livelihoods can continue, but essentially the product change has to happen. And technology change. Now this is what is being mentioned everywhere. We'll bring more technologies, we'll bring advanced, digitized technologies. But then, this is again, we are going to get colonized if we start thinking of technology will be given only by Western countries or countries which are already developed. We have technologies, but we are not following that. Which I keep saying is one big example is handloom sector in textiles. If you start encouraging handloom textiles, the textile sector will be in our control. We can go back to, we were, 100 years back, 40% of exports, textile exports were from India. We can reach again that if we use technology which is available with us. So there are number of technologies which India can do. In fact, recently there was a photo in Germany. Now they started doing, using leaves to create, small vessels to hold water or whatever, which we had. We even today we have been using leaf-based vessels or leaf-based packing. All this is with us. So we are not yet recognizing the technologies with us, and in the process, we are listening to World Economic Forum or someone coming down and says, we need fourth industrial revolution. But fourth industrial revolution, I can warn you, is going to colonize us more. And, most of the Indian manufacturing is going to vanish if we are going to follow the objectives and the agenda which is behind fourth industrial revolution. So my sincere appeal to you is, let us discuss all this. Let us discuss these 4 changes and see how we can bring a domestic framework where all of us can benefit out of it, and we continue to, manufacture the products which are climate friendly and which can help India in, maintaining the position of dominance. So I'm stopping here. Thank you for the patience here.
Thank you, Dr. Mr. Narasimha Reddy Donti Garu. Now, I invite Mr. Rajshekhar to please enlighten us. Can India capitalize on decarbonization?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? I can tell you with reasonable confidence that I've never enlightened anybody in my life. Okay. Reporters generally sit around taking notes.
All your readers are enlightened.
Yeah. Okay. So, ये ठीक है क्या? सुनाई दे रहा है? Yeah. Okay. और ऊपर? Okay. All right. Okay. Mitron, shall we start? Yeah. Okay. So I'm a journalist. Yeah. I started as a business reporter a long time ago, went off to write on environment, um, and gradually slipped into writing on political corruption and the many sort of less visible reasons through which policy gets made. Over the last 2 years, I've been taking a fairly close look at how India's energy policy is being made. Okay. I think that work started out of a general curiosity on whether we were on track towards an energy transition, which would sort of help us keep climate change at bay. And the way to sort of, and in order to figure out an answer to that question, done is, I had started looking at each of the primary forms of energy that India uses and talking to 50, 60 people, trying to identify the factors enabling and disabling the growth of that energy. So we started with oil, went to gas, then coal, solar, hydel. Along the way, we also ended up looking at manufacturing, which is what I'm going to focus on today. How many people here are reporters? Hands up. Okay, so I think in all this talk of climate change and how serious it is and so on, we end up missing the fact that we are living through a profoundly exciting time. Okay, what is happening right now is that the energy system on which the world runs is changing. You had the industrial revolution starting with the introduction of coal. This, I have to figure out the mic thing better. That sort of took us to about 150 years. Then you had the age of oil, early 19th century and so on, which then sort of took care of us for 100 years. You are now at the third cusp. Okay, renewables. So if you look at where we are, if you look at, say, phrases like net zero or decarbonization, what these constitute essentially is a global reset. Okay, all of you know this. All of you know that countries have competitive advantages and disadvantages, right? What net zero means or decarbonization means is that you have a chance to, is that none of that matters anymore. It doesn't matter how large your petroleum reserves are. To take one example, effectively, a country which has been importing energy till today could become an energy exporter. That is what we mean by competitive advantage, right? That is one opportunity that we sort of that we have been presented with as of now. The second thing which is happening is that the world right now after COVID is trying to decouple from China. And these two things are working in tandem. And you understand what decoupling means. We're importing virtually everything from China. If I'm, let's say, buying batteries, to take a really lame example, if one country controls 90% of the global production of lithium-ion batteries, you're in a very, very vulnerable position. And so what countries are now trying to do is try and see if they can shift their manufacturing value chains out of China into some other geography, right? So there are two opportunities that we face right now as a country and as a manufacturing sector. Okay, one, is it possible to capitalize on this entire global shift towards decarbonization? Two, can we capitalize on decoupling from China, right? What you're seeing right now is a global war along exactly these dynamics. Last week, President Biden, he basically passed an order saying that Americans working in China's semiconductor sector will be at risk of losing their citizenship, their American citizenship. That is how aggressive and real this battle is. None of this is academic. Okay, we know that China has gone and absolutely cornered the lithium-ion market, right? We also know that if you look at electrolyzers, Europe is working really hard to try and make sure that it leads the world in electrolyzer R&D. Because these are the new competitive advantages countries are trying to create for themselves. So I'll just stay on this point of So there are two questions that come up here. There is one opportunity in terms of the new energy architecture, and there's one opportunity around manufacturing itself. So I'll take the new energy architecture first. Sometime last year, I was looking at hydrogen in India. Okay, the government has made a lot of statements that we want to be Vishwaguru in hydrogen. Okay, by itself it's an absolutely meaningless statement. What you want to do is break it down into three parts. If I want to lead the world in hydrogen, it means three things. One, am I talking about leading the world in hydrogen manufacturing R&D, electrolyzers? Scenario one. Scenario two, am I talking about leading the world in the manufacturing of electrolyzers, like solar panels or whatever? Scenario three, am I talking about exporting hydrogen itself? So working on that report, I went to Bombay, I spoke to people in Reliance, a bunch of other companies, and one thing came through pretty clearly, which was that we don't have much of a chance of competing globally in terms of hydrogen R&D or developing new electrolyzers. Other countries have a very substantial lead over us. It's also fairly clear that we cannot export hydrogen globally because hydrogen as a fuel is a very hard fuel to transport. It has to be stored at extremely high pressure, which means that your cost of transport itself is very high. Where India has an opportunity is electrolyzers, which is the game that Reliance is playing. So if you look at the acquisition Reliance made, right, they acquired a company called Stiesdal, Stiesdal. And Stiesdal is special because they're not developing new electrolyzer technologies. What they are doing is they're taking a familiar known electrolyzer model, which does not require rare minerals, and tweaking that instrument so that it can be manufactured at scale. Okay, so let's sort of let's just continue with manufacturing for a moment. Okay, so hydrogen is one example. That is the opportunity side, right? The second side of this equation is the partial adaptation mitigation side, where if you take the steel sector, right? You have companies like Tata Steel, which have begun running pilots on both carbon capture and using hydrogen instead of using coking steel. All right. Simultaneously, and the reason they're doing, there's no government push saying that, you have to start using hydrogen or you have to start doing carbon capture. They're doing it because they're very afraid that they will lose access to Western markets otherwise. Right? And this is where a problem comes in. Hello. Okay. Tata Steel or Jindal or JSPL or SAIL are not the entirety of India's steel sector. So if you talk to mid-run companies, right, your Jaiswal Nikos, your Sarda Steel, companies like these in Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand and Orissa, what they will tell you is, and if you ask them that, how are you preparing for this future where depending on the carbon intensity of your steel, you will or will not have market access, right? Those companies will say, look, what are you talking about? Does everybody here understand Hindi? So what one of those CFOs told me is, हम EBITDA तो कर नहीं पा रहे हैं, हाँ, hydrogen में हम invest कहाँ से करेंगे? So there is a problem coming on that side. So it's one of those things. So there's an opportunity in manufacturing, but it's a slightly skewed kind of a field as of now. And this is a pattern that again showed up very clearly when I was writing on the PLI program. These came out a month ago. So the idea with the PLI program is that we want to use government support. So what the government is saying is that we want to dominate the industries of the future. Huh? Okay, I'll just explain it. So the government is saying that, okay, I'll just explain what PLI is, but the government started the scheme with two intentions in mind. One, We want to dominate the industries of the future, which is electrolyzers, batteries, whatever. The second is that we want to attract manufacturing supply chains from China into India. And the instrument that they have created for this is PLI. PLI is production linked incentive. Let me explain this. PLI basically stands on 4 pillars. You want to get manufacturing of, say, cell phones into India. And you want to say that iPhones are currently made in Taiwan and from there they're exported to the world. Why can't iPhones be made in India and then exported across the world? Or why can't solar panels be made in India and then exported across the world? Right? So to do this, the government came out with this scheme which stands on 4 pillars. One of them is really an old pillar, which is that we are going to hike import tariffs so much that companies will find it easier to source domestically. The second pillar is where things get kind of strange and interesting. Somewhere along the way, in sectors like solar panels, etc., the government has decided that we cannot support all the companies. If we want to have global scale, we have to focus, identify 3 or 4 companies and support them. So sectoral champion. This is like what Korea did with the chaebols, or what MITI did in Japan with Toyota and Sony and then Toshiba and the rest of them. The sectoral champion approach, however, is problematic because it's going to end up focusing on a few companies and most of the rest of India's manufacturing ecosystem remains untouched. To make one of these companies competitive, let's say you're Foxconn making iPhones in India again now, right? The government came out with a third pillar, which is called disability cost. If it costs you $200 to make an iPhone in Taiwan, and it costs $210 to make an iPhone in India, the government will give out $10 for every iPhone manufactured in this country, which is how it is production linked incentive, right? At this time, there's no clarity on how long the PLI scheme will continue and so on. And simultaneously, the government has put up a condition for localization. Now, from where I stand, I do not see, so one company in Andhra, in Hyderabad, won the PLI. That is Shady Sai Electricals. They won it for polysilicon, right? But this country has at least 100 companies manufacturing solar panels and the rest of it, right? And that is one question to really talk about, that how does one get the bulk of India's medium scale manufacturing companies, how do we get them globally competitive? I don't think PLI is going to do this. Okay, and this is the problem that we face in sector after sector, that you're going to have, at one level, you will have some industries reducing emissions enough for them to move back to Europe and America. Okay, the moment you have green steel, there's no reason for Europe to keep exporting that polluting industry to the third world, which is one kind of a risk. One outcome of such a thing is that then domestic manufacturers end up catering only to domestic demand. The export market doesn't work very well for them because carbon intensity, etc., are large questions. If a company wants to export, the question is, where do you find that competitiveness? If I'm a 500 crore company, right? My global peers are much larger than me. So I have to find a new way to be globally competitive in whichever small niche I pick up. But how do I identify what the niche is, A, and B, what kind of R&D support can I actually create to be able to capitalize on this opportunity? At this time, I don't have answers to these questions. I'm going to Orissa next month to try and sort of think through some of this better, but this is where I am. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I invite Dr. K. Babu Rao, retired scientist from Indian Institute of Chemical Technology, to give presentation on Indian manufacturing, climate crisis, energy transformation.
Okay. Friends, I'll be talking mostly what climate crisis means today for manufacturing and what the latest science is talking about climate crisis. So it is not that how we can modify this manufacturing, that manufacturing, but the science of climate now clearly tells that we need some fundamental changes. Tinkering with something, producing this, substituting is not adequate. Because when I speak, many things that I tell you may not be liked by you, because science is not concerned with our opinions, with our likes and dislikes. Science is about objective truths. So I will be presenting to you version of the scientists themselves, not my opinions, but I will be presenting something what the scientists are concerned about today, especially climate scientists, people who are working on climate regularly and what they are talking about. So I am not able to see them. Earlier there used to be a laptop here, we could see it from here and talk, but seeing from there. Okay, anyhow, no problem. I'll talk from here. It's all right, not necessary. I can talk. See we I can read from here. Huh? Come here. No problem. More convenient. So not necessary. Okay, thank you. I can read. So what Gandhiji has told us when we got independence, we should see, he had the vision about what India should be. But today we are all heckling at him. The way policies are there, we are only emulating the West, our colonizers, but there is nothing Indian about what we are doing today. Nothing really Indian about what we are doing today. We talk so much about our heritage, etc. He said, God forbid that India should ever take to industrialism in the manner of the West. If it took to say same economic exploitation, it would strip the world bare of locusts. We are talking about dominating over the world, doing business like producing like China. If China is consuming half the world's coal today, and if India also takes to the same industrialism, the entire energy the world needs will be cornered by China and India. What the rest of the world should do, and what it will lead to consequences in the world if there is so much of competition for resources. Then he also said, Britain took half the resources of the planet. If India should take to same thing, how many planets are required? Today, this is the same thing. Ecological footprint concept has come. And he says, if we have to live like an average European, we need 4 or 5 planets. And we have only one planet. And all the talk of Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk of going and occupying some planet somewhere in the space, it's all meaningless because you can't live there. This is the only planet, living planet that science knows. Science has not identified any other planet anywhere near reachable where life can survive. And we have such a beautiful planet, and because of the way of our greed, we are destroying the living planet and making it into a rock. And we are breaking everything. I think then. Okay. Now I give you Ernest F. Schumacher was our advisor to our planning commission in the 60s. He is known for his Buddhist economics. Now there is a Schumacher College in London where they teach about ecology and things like that. Then he said for India, what kind of economic system we should have? The system of production by masses, not by mass production. Mass production will make so many people unemployed, then worthless, socially unproductive. Earlier we had so much of artisans. They were doing things, producing things for the society. Today they are useless. What happened in the UK when the first textile machines came, the Luddite movement, what they talk about, has happened because of that. these weavers, they wanted employment in the textile mills. They said, we don't want you. You are all skilled. You ask for more higher wages. Anybody can work on these textile machines. So they have not employed them. So there was a rebellion, but it was suppressed very violently. They were hanged to the posts on the streets. So many weavers were killed in UK to make the textile revolution possible. So everything that comes is and has problems, consequences, human consequences. So India, for its population of 1.4 billion, we have to employ more people to be involved. Today, so much of unemployment, so much of destitution. 90% of Indians are not living any good life. It's only the 10%, all of us here, who are enjoying all the benefits. We are a mini America, mini Europe in India. That's a fact. Okay. Today we are living in a climate constrained world. The 19th century thinking, 20th century thinking also is not suitable now. Everything that we do is linked to what happens to the climate. Because the way we produce, the way we consume, the way we do everything, the way we are doing agriculture, the pesticides we are spraying on our fields, everything is linked to ultimately to the climate, how it is changing the climate. So, for example, in India, how many people really understand about consequences of climate change? No, hardly any. How many people here, you have read how many articles on climate? Not many people may have read much. Our newspapers are also not writing much about it. Whereas in other countries, there are so many agitations. Right now in UK, the women are in the forefront of the agitation because they are saying we are mothers. We know the pain of what happens to my children and grandchildren. There's just stop oil is one movement that is happening. They say we don't want oil. If you don't stop the oil, we don't stop the new oil and coal, we will not live, we will not be able to exist here on this planet. So let us move away from coal, go to renewable energy. But this present conservative government of UK, it is now licensing more oil exploitation in the North Sea and also shale oil and gas on the land. So there is big agitation in UK against this. So similarly everywhere in other countries, because there is more awareness about climate in those countries, not in our country. So first of all, our industry should move more towards climate compliance. What are they doing? For example, I tell you, Indian government is promoting alcohol factories, ethanol factories in a big way. That ethanol is to be blended in petrol. I will cover that in detail afterwards, the last few slides. Well, is it really saving the carbon emissions? And how many cars are there in India? I look out the chart. For 1,000 people in India, there are 22 cars. And only in the cars you can use ethanol and nowhere else. Just for feeding only 20% of ethanol into the cars, how much of agricultural land you are transferring into producing energy and not food? And are you saving carbon emissions? You don't save carbon emissions. Carbon emissions will increase further. So what is the point? We are neither saving the foreign exchange, we are neither saving this. This is because some people are interested, policies are driven by politics, and we citizens are not participating in the debate. So these are the things that are happening. What is in the interest of the people? What is in the interest of the nation? That should be debated. Somebody should not tell us from there how to do or what to do. That is the problem. We are a deficient democracy. That is our problem. Is there are we doing anything to replace coal, oil and gas? I can tell you all the new proposals that come with all the alcohol plants, they have a captive power plant run with coal. See the fun. It's a green fuel you are telling, you are adding to the petrol and saving energy, and you are using a coal-fired power plant, very highly inefficient power plant, because it is subcritical. Only 30% or 33% of the energy is converted into electricity. Actually, after the 12th five-year plan, the government decided a policy, we will not allow any subcritical technology power plants. There was a precedent. But afterwards, the people have gone, the investors and industries have gone and influenced the government policy, and they have changed that. And one industry was permitted in Telangana after the violent opposition by the local people. And finally, they were given environmental clearance, but the company has not come up because he cannot produce economically, he cannot sell it. This is the problem. Why are we doing things which are not feasible, economically feasible, and which are not in the interest of the people? Why are we changing the policies for wrong reasons? That's the issue. The industry is opting for small, I told you, technologies adopted are mostly as outdated, hazardous, and wasteful. I can tell you about this particularly in chemical industry. Horrible chemical industries are coming up, which are discarded in the Western countries. They are not bothered about how many people died, how our water is poisoned, and we have very poor quality regulation, and everything is very bad. It is not in the interest of the public. It is only in the interest of saying that we are increasing our GDP. And increasing our GDP, how it is improving the lives of the people. It is something that we have to debate as citizens. It is not to be taken as easily. Environmental impact projects of project presented to people are dishonest. We are resorting to deception of the people. We got a right from the international agreements at the Rio that people should participate in a democracy in the development. What is the voice we are giving to the people? We are not giving to the people. If you want to build a real good country, let us take, for example, small country like Uruguay. Uruguay is smaller than Telangana in population. That country has totally moved over to renewable energy, such a small country, 100% renewable energy. Why we are not able to do? Telangana has started 9,000 megawatts of coal-fired power plants after the Paris Agreement. After the Paris Agreement, after India has signed, Telangana is not outside India. What is binding to India is binding to Telangana also. And with what we will do that? And whenever people or citizens have opposed this kind of development, they're called, this is something they're doing here. There's a conspiracy against the government. They're calling it conspiracy. Recently, court has given a judgment against the Virlapalam ultra mega power plant, saying that they have cancelled the EC and they said you redo everything and get another permission. For that, the minister was saying that it's a conspiracy against. What is conspiracy in that? If you cannot defend it in the court and the environmental, whose conspiracy can work in the court? This is a very unfortunate situation. We always don't value environment. We think economy is the primary. But one thing you cannot forget, there is no economy without environment. You need raw materials, energy. Where from it comes? This is the crust of the earth that is providing you all that. Without that, what kind of economy you can have? This is a fundamental flaw in our thinking. We have been drilled into our mind that economy is priority. On a dead planet, who can live on a dead planet? On a biodiversity we are killing. Daily 200 species is going extinct. Every day 200 species is going extinct. With such a planet, with loss of biodiversity, we will not have food to eat also. What kind of planet we are building? Why we are neglecting the basic truths that science is telling you? The entire industrialism is based on the modern science. The same science is telling you this is inconvenient. When climate science was growing and telling the truth, it is the corporate interests which have belittled the scientists, which have denied the science. For last 40 years, the corporate companies have been fighting against any regulation, and they have been belittling and insulting and abusing the scientists who are telling the truth. It is true. Women scientists, particularly in climate science, they have been threatened with rape and murder, abused in the Western countries, not in India, because we don't have so many people doing such research there. This is a fact. ExxonMobil, BP, Chevron, and their think tanks, Heritage Foundation, Heartland Institute, Cato Institute, all these corporate funded think tanks, they have been working against science, against the factual science. But today, what is you can see it now. You look outside, you can say, our chairman is telling us, see, the rainy season has changed. Anybody can observe. You don't have to be a scientist for that. That's the whole thing. So there is no second economy without natural resources. Then World Bank, what World Bank is not somebody else's work. World Bank told us we are losing 5.7% of gross national GDP every year because of our environmental degradation. 5.7% of GDP. What is our growth rate? We claim about 7%, 8%. 5.7% is gone for environmental degradation. What do you do about it? One in Deutsche Bank CEO, one Pawan, I am not able to recall his name, he made a millennium report for the biodiversity thing. He said in India, the loss of natural resource, natural losses, biodiversity loss, etc., totally computed. Himachal Pradesh was losing the highest in the country. On an average, we were losing around 16% of our natural wealth in this country because of the so-called policies that we are following. Pawan Sukhdev was the person who has written that report. He was with the Deutsche Bank. This is the problem. These are not some just pep talk. It is serious reports and research. We are greenwashing everything. We say we are planting trees. However, planting trees doesn't solve any problem. At least I would. There are so many peer-reviewed research papers. They said you plant the entire planet with trees. Entire planet. Don't leave any space for the agriculture. It will reduce the temperature by only 0.5 degrees centigrade. Nothing else. And then what do we eat? Particularly planting in the polar regions and Canada-like places, it is detrimental. It actually enhances the heating of the planet because those places, boreal forests, there's snow in it. Snow reflects the sunlight. When you don't have sunlight, when you have trees cover, it is brown or green. So whenever sunlight cannot reflect sun so effectively, so the temperatures increase. Only in the equator region, tree plantation will be of some consequence. And where is the space? For example, Telangana government has started with a big fanfare that we will go for 270 crore trees in the planet. We calculated, simple calculation. As per the CPCB standards, if we have to plant so many trees, how much of Telangana land space is required? We found that it is 9% of Telangana's land area is required to complete the Haritaharam. Where is that land? You started a Dalit land program of 3 acres each, and we would not many Dalits were given any that land. Only initially few were given, and there the program is closed. Nothing is happening on that end. 9% of the land area, how do you get to plantation? Now we need more and more land. Now you are bringing more and more land to cultivation with the lift irrigation projects. So if you want to bring more cultivation, then there can be no trees planted. So this is Nafiz Ahmad, is an expert on security systems, etc. He said system is now ready to collapse. That is what he, according to his understanding, particularly about the UK system, trust government, he said, accelerating conditions of change beyond the capability of the British institutions to adapt. They are generating crisis across multiple institutions simultaneously in such a way that they are overwhelming the overall system's ability to respond. So we are a complex society. There is a theory called theory of complex societies. Professor Joseph Tainter has written a book, Collapse of Complex Societies. He is an archaeologist. He has studied all the civilizations that have collapsed up to now. 32 civilizations existed on this planet, on the earth. They flourished, they reached a peak of their glory, but where are they now? Why did they collapse? This is industrial civilization is also one thing like that. Our Venkatraman Ramakrishna Nobel laureate also said, humans are also one species. So many species have gone extinct. If we don't learn, we can also go extinct. But we are thinking that we can do anything and get away. That is the whole problem. We have to engage ourselves very seriously and we have to transform ourselves. If we want our children to live well, this is Professor David King, Sir David King. He was scientific advisor to the British government. Earlier, he was on the COP also at that time. We have to act quickly. What we do believe in the next 3 to 4 years will determine the future of humanity. That's all. Before 2030, our future is totally sealed. If we don't act now so rapidly, there's nothing we can do afterwards. That's why that worry, concern is there. I can speak here as pleasingly. We can tell that we can do this, we can do that, we can take India as a superpower. People may like it, but science is not concerned with that. Science, if you truly believe, recently I have also read one report by University of Lausanne, public engagement by the academics and scientists. So how responsible we should be to tell truth to the people. We should not talk to please people what they like and what not for getting claps. We have an obligation to inform the truth, however unpalatable it is. Okay. She is a daughter of a Nobel laureate in physics, Julia Steinberger. She was recently arrested in Switzerland for doing an act of protest. Imagine why women scientists, professors, internationally known, and a lead IPCC author, she has to go onto the road and lie across the road to stop asking Swiss government to declare climate emergency. What she was asking is declare climate emergency. For that, she was arrested. Everybody is doing non-violent civil disobedience actions. When they are doing that, now British conservative government is bringing a new police rule saying that they can be fined heavily, they can be jailed. But earlier, the government and courts also, whenever the government arrested this civil non-violent civil disobedience, the court has always been acquitting these people. They were telling they're focusing on a serious issue for humanity. Whenever there is a danger for humanity, people can violate the law. There is nothing wrong. That is what this. For example, if your house is on fire, somebody outside can come and barge into your house to save you. That is not a violation of the law. Because normally it is considered trespass. You can't enter others' houses forcibly. But when to save somebody, you can do that. This is exactly same thing. The government and courts are saying, if there is a danger to the people, and if it is for good purpose, for common good, this can be done. And David Goodstein, a physicist from University of California, Berkeley, he said civilization, as we know, has come to some time in this century. We are in the danger. This civilization, industrial civilization, may not last long if we continue. So many children hold placards and the demonstrations. Business as usual is equal to death. That is how the children are understanding. But whereas we elders are not able to understand. Young children, 8 years, 10 years, are asking their prime minister, why should we go to school and study? Yes, we are studying science, but you are not valuing the science we are learning in our school. Why you are asking us to study that science which you are not valuing? Yes, they are able to ask us, but we are not doing that here.
So what I'm going to talk about here today
This
is the urgency
Michael Mann,
just as
Professor
important, the
Michael Mann.
agency
Listen.
in addressing the climate crisis. You all know the litany. If you're watching the news, China's worst heat wave on record, record heat in London, a third of Pakistan underwater, Canada's strongest ever storm, an unprecedented landfalling hurricane striking the west coast of Florida. And that's just the past few months. The impacts of climate change are no longer subtle. We are seeing them play out in real time in the form of these extreme weather disasters. The urgency of climate action is crystal clear. But let's talk about the agency of climate action. In the new climate war, I warn about the threat of doomism and despair, for it potentially leads us down the path of disengagement. And polluters would much rather see you disengaged and on the sidelines than out there on the front lines demanding change. So we must recognize that it's not too late to prevent catastrophic climate change impacts. The obstacles aren't physical. They're not technological. They are entirely political. So you must use your voice. And students here at Penn are doing that. You are using your voice in a very powerful way. But there's another very powerful way to use your voice, and that's your vote. In a matter of weeks, there is a midterm election that will determine the future course of climate action and, in fact, the future course of our democracy here in the United States. And as goes the United States when it comes to democracy and climate action, goes the rest of the world. So this election couldn't be more important, and it's critical that you turn out and you vote. Vote for climate champions. Vote out climate deniers and delayers. The future of our planet literally lies in the balance. And so I will reduce my talk to simply one word: vote. Thank you.
This is the latest graph issued by Professor James Hansen, who was the scientist who warned the world first about global warming. He went before the American Senate and told them that global warming is already happening. It was in 1988. Remember this. After 1988, his warning, 60% of all the carbon in the atmosphere was emitted in between 1990 and today. Imagine that, how careless we have been. After knowing the fact that climate change is already happening, the worlds have enhanced burning of coal and oil, and today all the 60% of carbon dioxide remaining in the atmosphere was released during this last 30 years. That is the situation. So he predicted recently releasing it. Next year, 2024, we will see an average increase of 1.5 degrees centigrade already. That is the latest graph. That photos are coming on its way. If you can move it, they can see the actual point. Remove the photos. There you can see. It's crossing the, you can see that growth. 2024, at 1.5 degrees centigrade, we will reach already. Next year, we will reach 1.2 above. This is it. There is no way. Things are going. There is no respect because it's physics. It doesn't bother about what we think, what we like, what we dislike. Next, please. Okay. This another problem. Who is causing this climate crisis and who is paying the price? Recently, we have seen the tragedy in Pakistan. They may be our enemies politically for some reason, but they are people. They have suffered for nothing. They are not responsible for the carbon emissions. 33 million people flooded and left homeless. How sad it is. It can happen to us also. That's why and United Nations Secretary General warned, don't think that it doesn't happen to you. It can happen to you anytime, anywhere in the world. So in this coming 2 years, any tragedy can happen in India also. So who are responsible? Top 1% of the richest people in the world, they are responsible for about nearly a quarter of the emissions, more than 60. And 10% of the richest people in the world are responsible for half the emissions of the world. Bottom 50% of the people, poor people, they are responsible for only 7% of the global emissions. And they are the people who are dying. And all the policies about need for fossil fuels, it's all thinking of ours. Because we are used to those comforts, we want to drive our cars, we don't want to give up anything. They say, no, how can there be development without these things? What? They are also citizens. On a democracy, everybody's vote is same. How are we treating them in a democracy? Do we really call ourselves a democracy if this is the situation? So why there is no restriction on these people? They are written in the United States. They said, if you take in the world 0.1% of the richest people, the entry to that is $43.1 million. The richest person, if you have to be in the 0.1% of this, you should have a wealth of $43.1 million. So they said, Elon Musk owns a yacht, a 500 feet yacht, which requires 25 million for maintenance per year. That means even a person with the richest, among the richest in the world, 0.1%, he cannot maintain the yacht even for 2 years. So ugly is the inequality in the world. So ugly is the inequality in the world. During the pandemic, the wealth has transferred up and up. The bottom is simply denuded. They are made helpless. This is not a democracy. This is not the way. You should allow the people to live. This is so much of inequality. this Antonio Guterres said, climate activists are sometimes depicted as dangerous radicals. When I am talking like this, I am named as some anti-national or as anti-development or things like that. We are used to that. I am not bothered about that because we are speaking truth. But the truly dangerous radicals are those that are increasing the production of fossil fuels. The sad part of it is even public institutions which are doing consultancy jobs, they are projecting coal as a sustainable development. They're projecting chemical industry which produce enormous waste as sustainable development, as models of sustainable development, just because for the consultancy fees. This is the sad state. Yes. Investing in fossil fuels infrastructure is moral and economic madness. We don't need any more coal and oil. We are already emitting 3 billion tons of, nearly 3 billion tons of carbon dioxide every year. We don't have oil and coal resources. Coal is there plenty, but oil and gas, there is nothing. We are importing already 85% of oil and coal, oil and gas from outside. So why are we going for that? We are building infrastructure on oil pipelines. We are building infrastructure on gas pipelines, spending thousands and thousands of crores of money. Is it wise investment? We have already committed by 2070, we will go carbon neutral. So we have to close everything after some time. And if the world goes bad, it won't even take off. Even a few years afterwards, we have to close everything because nature will not allow you to function. How this, for example, when they are building so many alcohol plants, carbon dioxide is a byproduct. One project I have read in the Telangana it will produce 340 tons of carbon dioxide per day. And that has to be sold. Where will you sell? How do you transport it? And will you lay pipelines for that? And if you lay pipeline, where will you take that gas? If you use it in soda making, all that is again going into atmosphere. Where are you saving the energy by doing such projects? Nobody is. It's all short-sighted, political convenience. And those industries are started mostly by political people. All the alcohol factories in the state, they have political connections. They are owned by the politicians or their binamis. Because I think time is running out. I have to quickly go. Okay, sorry. This is something. This is on India, bottom 50%, middle 40%, how much they are responsible for this. Then I'll skip this thing. There is not much time. Yeah. These two young girls, how passionate. This has been discussed across the world. So millions and more than, so I think several tens of millions of people have watched their video. They have thrown tomato soup on a Van Gogh painting. But they were very careful. That painting is protected by a glass. They knew the painting will not be demonstrated. But this throwing act was debated very, very much on the internationally. What they say, everybody says, then these girls are saying, what is worth more, art or life? And on a dead planet, what is the value for art? They are saying. Are you more concerned about the protection of a painting or the protection of our planet and people? What is the priority? Those young girls are asking. And Einstein told us, the world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them without doing anything. People who are questioning the girls' action, do they do anything? Okay, you tell them those girls are wrong. But what are you doing to preventing the damage to the planet? Nothing. I will only sit and comment on the people. That's all. This is the whole problem with this. This is what the scientists are directly acting now. Scientists are indulging in private.
My social responsibility as a scientist is to do everything I can to prevent climate breakdown.
I fear there is a real disservice that we are doing to wider society by not voicing our fears. I can't imagine many academics got into academia because they wanted to be an activist. But as well as academics, of course, we're citizens. We've got responsibilities.
So what's the role of scientists and academics? Well, they're in a position to understand what's happening.
You know it's serious. You know it's serious.
You know it's only going to get worse.
Du weißt, es ist ernst.
Und du weißt, dass es nur schlimmer wird.
You're a scientist.
You're an academic. You are a citizen.
You have a lot of power and you know what's going on.
We're racing towards a precipice. If we fall over it,
Governments keep making promises.
But they don't do anything.
We will pass a warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius by the end of this decade.
Unsere Stimmen
Haben Gewicht. Wir haben eine Verantwortung. We need now scientists in the streets.
Scientists are more trusted than politicians, than journalists, than business leaders.
It's time to level with the general public and tell them the whole story.
Vor COP27 werden wir unsere bisher größte Aktion starten.
This October, along with hundreds of scientists, will engage in civil resistance.
it's a narrow window. We don't have time to waste. And there's no one but scientists who can take the lead in this.
This is how the Mississippi River, mighty Mississippi River has dried up. That small rock that is there, it will be a tourist spot. Now people can walk to it. There was no need to to that. This is Shanghai, the Yangtze River, third largest in the world. It is out of water. This is what is happening. These are the climate scientists protesting against the meeting of the even on the health. They said these are all scientists. They are protesting over it, and actually 50 scientists. Energy transition. Now they are talking about natural gas as it be in other countries, but not in our country. We don't have natural gas, so it cannot work because the natural gas, when we are using, it leaks. They found that if it leaks around 3.6 to 7.8% of the total volume that we use. So at that time, when they calculate the greenhouse potential, it is worse than coal. Natural gas becomes worse than coal as a greenhouse this potential. So there is no point in going for natural gas. There's so much research from Stanford, from Cornell University. They are producing their papers. I have also quoted the two papers below here. And for India also, Center for Sustainable Energy Policy, Delhi, they said natural gas is unlikely to be a bridge fuel for India because we don't have natural gas, first of all. We have to import. So this is for 1.5 degrees, how much of fossil fuels existing we can do. It is a research done at University College of London. First, they did the research before the Paris Agreement for 2 degrees centigrade. Now, after the Paris Agreement, that they said it is now 2 degrees is too much. We should go for 1.5 degrees. They have done the revised study for how much coal we can use, how much oil we can use without transgressing that limit. They said world has to leave 89% of coal in the ground, 58% of oil in the ground, and 59% of the gas in the ground. In case of India, because we are given a better leverage as a developing country, India has to leave 76% of its coal, 47% of its oil, and 35% of gas by 2050. We cannot exploit it, but we are expanding our coal into Hasdiya forest. Recently, the people there protested, the tribals there protested. They are destroying the deep, biorich, diverse Hasdiya forest for coal mining. Is it necessary? Thank you. Whatever it is. See, when we have to calculate there is a carbon budget. Scientists have calculated 320 gigatons of carbon budget was available for us at the time of the Paris Agreement for not transgressing the 1.5 degree limit, CC limit. There are many ways of reaching that. So by 2050, we have to reach zero emissions. So you can come by straight line. There are different paths I have given there. Okay. You can see I don't know what. So what is the least, the area under the curve represents the total cumulative emissions. So the lowest curve is the one which will give you lowest cumulative emissions. So if we have to follow that path, are we doing that? We are not doing that. We are, the more we postpone, the more difficult it is. We said, we have promised earlier, entire world, all the governments, by 2020, we will start bending the curve of the carbon emissions. We have not even begun to bend it. 2021 past, 22 is going to be further high. So when will you save this? When will we follow our own words? This is natural gas. I think there's not much time. I will quickly skip. There's not so much talk about green hydrogen. Green hydrogen is possible only with solar energy, not otherwise. They are promoting, all these oil companies are promoting blue hydrogen from natural gas. And blue hydrogen is worse than coal, worse than original natural gas. And also when you use it as hydrogen, the thermodynamics comes to play again. When you burn hydrogen, only 33% of the energy can be used when you use it in a motor, in an automobile or anywhere else, or for producing electricity. So there is no point in doing that. So they say instead, straight away burn natural gas, you will save all that inefficiencies downstream. So the hydrogen is not there. The carbon emissions is given. So when you compare, hydrogen is not at all actually. And when you have to go for blue hydrogen, you have to standardize the carbon capture and storage technology. Where will you store the carbon dioxide? Where is the technology for it? The plant that is now removing carbon dioxide from atmosphere, it is able to remove only 3 seconds worth of carbon emissions per annum. What the world is releasing into atmosphere, we throw out around 3,800 crore tons per year. Now, actually, if you put the other greenhouse potential, it becomes 5,000 tons. 5,000 tons. So when we take that, what it can remove is 3 seconds worth of emissions. The technology is nowhere near completion. So we have to move long ahead. And when you do that removal, it consumes energy again. It consumes energy again with the limitations of the thermodynamics. This is the problem. So renewable energy. We think that simply replacing fossil fuels into renewable energy will solve the problem. But the understanding today is we have to cut down our energy requirements. We have to live with much less energy. And most of the energy is profligated and wasted. For a good some research is going on in what is the energy required for good life. One D. Narasimha Rao at Yale University, he has been publishing papers on that. So you don't require this much energy as we are doing now today. There are alternate ways of living good life. So why are we not opting for that? 1 million British thermal units of natural gas requires 3 gallons. Ethanol requires 29,000 gallons of water. So this is about the ethanol I was talking about. I will give you. So it requires so much of grain to produce ethanol, 7.54 billion liters. The Indian government wants to produce 10.16 billion tons of liters of ethanol for blending for automobile fuel. 10 billion means 1,000 crore tons, 1,000 crore liters of ethanol. Okay. So is it really, when we have to do that, how much of additional water is required? How much of additional land is required? That has to be considered. And according to the EFA estimates, if you have 1 hectare of solar panels and you produce so much electricity and you drive an electric car, and if you have to drive the same distance using ethanol blended petrol, you require 187 hectares of land to produce that ethanol, to produce grain and that. Is it available in this country? So why are we doing this? These are all verifiable facts. Let the government answer. And who has written the ethanol policy? Some babus in the government departments. None of them was a qualified scientist. They were all IAS officers. They only know how to please the government. Of course, the scientists also in the same boat in India. Whatever the government wants, they will write the report and give. We have seen it. They're only rubber stamping. So that's why not only here, Professor Mary Christina Wood, environmental law professor at the University of Oregon, she has written a book called Nature's Trust. I have to close it, sir. Okay. So this is the problem. Thank you. Green growth you talk about. UN has done the studies and they found that the amount of materials we are extracting from nature, the nature can no longer provide. Nature can provide you sustainably 5,000 crore tons of extraction minerals. But we are using now 10,000 crores already, and it is projected to increase to 18,000 crore tons by 2050. Where will you get all that? How is it possible? So we are trying to do things which the nature cannot provide. We are organically linked to the planet. If we want to live on this planet, we have to abide by its laws. If we don't want to do that, we have the power of science, we have power of technology, we will do anything. We have to pay the price for it. Thank you, sir. Sorry, I've taken more time.
Thank you, sir. Now I invite Mr. B. Indrasen Reddy, environmentalist and entrepreneur, to please present on sustainable development through renewable energy.
When hello, when someone says, in my family, people say, when they hear the name Donti Narasimha Reddy Garu, they ask me, why are you working with an activist, right? And I see now a bigger activist in Babu Rao, right?
Activism is not a disqualification.
It's not.
Top scientists, Nobel laureates are also doing that.
It's not. I'm an activist as well. Let me clarify that. So there are a lot of activists on one side. There are business people on the other side. Business people think that activists are useless and frauds. Activists think that business people are frauds, and they work hand in glove with the government. This is the problem that's been going on for generations and decades. I have both blood. I have activism in me. I have entrepreneurship in me. And I told in other seminars, and I'm going to tell again here as well, I'm going to bridge that gap between activists and entrepreneurship. I think it's required because we cannot keep on fighting. And if people listen, well and good. If people don't listen, then activism will continue. It will grow and it will become bigger and bigger. And so bigger, it will pull the governments down. And it happened earlier and it will continue to happen. What we need is a medium. I'm not saying that I've done anything big, but I'm saying I will do my best. Justice B. Subhashan Reddy Memorial Foundation, Justice B. Subhashan Reddy, my father died 3 years ago. He was a great man, people say. I also say as a father. When he was on the hospital bed, he told me, get the book and a pen and said, write the goals. First, you have to establish a foundation on my name after I pass away. And here are the goals. Here are the 5 goals. Goal 1, goal 2, goal 3, goal 4, and goal 5. And one of those goals is about environment and water bodies. He used to love environment. He used to talk a lot about water bodies. He used to talk bad about all the previous governments, how they have destroyed tank bunds and Gandipets and all Usman Sagar and etc. And a lot of lakes, which we don't even talk about now. They're gone, right? So I said, let me do my bit. Let me start as an entrepreneur. I'm fine. But I said, let me be an activist now as well. That's when we founded Justice B. Subhashan Reddy Memorial Foundation, through which we do all kinds of activities. Now, I'll make very quick about this because we have been listening to passionate presentations and dialogues from this gentleman here. So I'm going to talk about sustainable development through renewable energy. But before that, you need to know what is sustainable development. Sustainable development means if I'm going to talk about only environment, that's not sustainable. If I'm going to talk about only economic, it's not sustainable. And if I'm going to talk only about social, it's not sustainable. All 3 should work together. That is called sustainable. But is coal sustainable? Well, let's see. Let's talk about this particular screen so that you will know what we are actually doing. I'm giving you facts because I come from industry. I'm into renewable energy. I'm in solar business. So I know these are all facts. One industry, I'm talking about one industry. I'm talking about one textile industry, one polymer industry, one company I'm talking about. You know how much coal they burn? 73 lakh kgs of coal per year. And I've taken only 50,000 units per month. And if someone consumes 1 lakh, 2 lakh, 10 lakh, 15 lakh, 20 lakh units, you can just imagine, you can do the calculation. 73 lakh kgs of coal per year is burned by one industry which can consume 50,000 units a month. That is 18,250 tons of CO2. Now you can just imagine what this all is. This screen, I wanted it to be on the first few slides so that it sinks in your mind what industry is doing. Now, if anyone goes to I'm not sure if anyone has gone to the coal mining. I think I suggest you go. In fact, I have suggested schools that I will sponsor them to visit coal mines. No one will ever do coal business. And I think they should be taken to coal mines at early age, like 8 years, 9 years, 10 years. That's when they start learning, they see. No one will do coal business because it's dirty, it's bad, and it knows it pollutes. So you still think coal is sustainable? First, you should know what coal is. Without this, I think you will all talk about coal. How is coal formed? How was coal formed? Coal was formed, there is no history. It cannot be written somewhere. It's prehistoric, it's very ancient. It is dead plants. Plants in swamps. Probably hectares, probably a land, a huge land. Those plants were dead. They got buried in soil. Later on, some pressure from earth, it got buried even further down into earth's crust and even further down where they were exposed to extreme heat. And then slowly after extreme heat, they started becoming hard coal. Did anyone think that, can ask a question to yourself, how coal is burned actually? How can you light a coal? Now you understood one thing, coal came from plants. Plants take sun energy. So coal has sun energy. That's why when you light it, it fires. This is how coal was formed. So what am I saying? It took millions of years for coal to form. Millions and millions of years. And we're using resources formed millions and millions of years ago. Okay. Now what exactly happened is, in the Industrial Revolution, right, in the 1950s around that time, in 1860 around that time, the smart guys said, the white guys especially at the time, the smart guys were considered in Britain, said, I'm going to move a particular object from here to there, or I'm going to make one product. It is taking 8 hours. But if I do that in a machine, I can do 8 times. So they said, let's start a machine. Now, how does the machine power? To steam power, that is water steam power earlier, wood earlier, but it was consuming more energy, more time. So they started producing power through coal. And that's the beginning of coal. And that's where the abuse started. Okay. If you look at the rise of coal, okay, I have to come to that screen. You can sit here. No, I have to go back again. I just need that. It's coming. Look at the screen very carefully. In 1750, the CO2 in the atmosphere was only 280 ppm particles per, but M is, yeah, ppm, right? And sudden jump, and that too after 200 years, 1958, it's 315 ppm. And this is not some random number. It is from a scientific institute in California called Scripps. And this person in 1958 was also awarded by George Bush in 2012, not in 1958, but he was awarded in 2012. Now see, in 2005, it's 380 ppm in atmosphere. So from 2021 is 415 ppm. So 1750 to 1958, it's only what you're talking about 35. And from 1958 to 2021, it's 100. And you can imagine with so much of industrialization, so much of technology innovation, so much of growth, and so much of greed, and so much of power all around that I want to be number one in economy. I think it's going to be even worse. It's going to be worse. It's going to be very worse. So what are we doing in 2050 and 3000? Probably we will not have this meeting. And who's going to take care of our next generation? I don't know. Now, we are talking about industries. We are in FTCCI. Unfortunately, we have to say this. Industries are the biggest consumers of energy. The change, if any, has to come. It has to come from them. Why is it not coming? We don't know. We are certainly here for understanding their concerns and definitely take it to the government. So as I said, a normal house burns only 3,000 kgs of coal per year, whereas industry that consumes 50,000 units a month burns 73 lakh kgs of coal per year. That's massive. Now, this is where I'm saying, this is where I'm asking the industry to shift from fossil fuels to renewable energy.
Sorry, sir. One industry you're talking.
One company.
Only 50,000 units.
Only 50,000 units.
Leave any industry. Any industry 50,000 units.
Now, this is my proposition. This is not some organization or something. This is my proposition to industries. Move to renewable energy, right? Shift to renewable energy. So you can ask me, why? Why should I move? What is it for me? Well, now it's recorded. It's reported. It is the cheapest and the cleanest energy. It's not only cleanest, it's cheapest. So what is stopping industry from adopting solar energy? We need to know. Return on investment, industries, companies want ROI, right? ROI is between 3.5 to 4.5 years. So why is industry not adopting? And most importantly, it reduces greenhouse gases that are vital for our living. As Sir said, what are we going to do with all this wealth and assets and cars and all these buildings when climate change deteriorates and we are not here to enjoy? Carbon dioxide is not bad. If anyone says CO2 is bad, I think they are wrong. If anyone says, yeah, okay, let's do something. Can you have more oxygen? That's also bad. It's a gas. You cannot have more of anything. No one said carbon dioxide is bad. No one said greenhouses are bad. No, it's just imbalance of greenhouses is bad. When you have more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, it's going to cause temperature rise. It's proven. As Sir said, it's scientific, it's proven. We are already witnessing extreme heat in cold places like Europe continent. Ice melts, flooding across the world. Right, everywhere. I do business in Africa. I spoke to my colleague yesterday and he said there are floods everywhere in Africa, especially Lagos, Nigeria. Yeah. So this is not particular to some Telangana or Europe. It's all over the world, across the world. So climate change is real. And I've spoken to multiple doctors, especially children's doctors, pediatricians. They said, it's the carbon dioxide, it's a pollution which is causing lung ailments in children. People are born with asthma because of pollution in air. So why move to renewable energy? India pledged net zero by 2070, that is Paris Climate Agreement. And they pledged net zero by 2070 last year, that is COP26 in Glasgow. Why move to renewable energy? Because climate is the new wealth. What will you do with all the wealth and assets that you're going to leave to your sons or daughters after you die? You write a will and go. What's the point? Climate is the new wealth. Let's give climate, cleaner climate to the next gen. Thank you.
Government is not supporting that. Actually, problem is we are permitted to install only 1 megawatt. I think you also know that, right? Max. That is a problem which industry is also facing. If an industry wants to install more than 1 megawatt, they are not getting it. Permissions, all problems.
Yeah, Telangana government has this limitation of 1 megawatt for industries only. And we have approached Telangana government several times and asked them to allow captive power. But captive power, they have some issues. But this is a public forum. I don't want to say anything, but there is something happening from the industry. We are working. We will definitely fight, and we are ready to even file a case in the court and fight for the industry, right? But this information should not go out. I hope there is no political covert here. I hope not. And even if it goes out, I don't care. But let it be we are fighting. We are filing a case. We'll fight against the government. But sir, at least you have 1 megawatt. You can begin with that. That's what I'm saying. Start somewhere.
Demand, they have to change the policy. I think industries should demand. Industries have all the capacity to lobby.
Yeah. Now the session is open for the Q&A. Like if participants, yeah.
Can I ask? Yeah. Dr. Babura was outstanding. Lot of thought-provoking. Honestly, I wonder why the government and including me, we haven't thought about it. Actual. Mr. President Reddy, I hope there are no government people here. The President, Mr. Agarwal knows, we have been fighting the system on the matters of electricity last 20 right from court, kacheri, everything. The biggest enemy is the government itself. Tragically, they want to protect what I want to call in the absence of any other word, institution. The distribution companies, the power producing companies. They are getting destroyed by the government, and in sinking them, in protecting them, they are sinking us. The number of hurdles for non-conventional energy. A book can be written. Unfortunately, this is what is to be highlighted. How to get over that is the biggest problem. There are a lot of them who are willing to go for non-conventional energy. Mini hydel, to transmit that energy, they want the cost. To take it to account, it is best the guy closes it down. Wind, even in this state, the additional cross subsidy surcharge they wanted was 6 rupees 84 paisa. It is cheaper to buy coal power. So the hurdles are more from the government. What is the policy direction that the influencing people like Narasimha Reddy Garu, or yourself to steer the policy towards some sensibility. See, if I say, they will say industry Rajya itself. I mean, they cannot accuse you of that, or are they already accusing? I don't know. I mean, mine was not a question which had an answer, but that is what is thought provoked.
Yeah, sir. See, we actually love to see a lot of industrialists here because we wanted this to be a real curtain raiser where from this seminar we would know all the problems of industries or industrialists. But I would certainly like to write down the actual problem that you have. I will, after this meeting, I will certainly sit with you for some time and write down. But also, I'm extending my support and help to FTCCI in understanding the problems of industries so that we can write a report and work with people like Donti Narasimha Reddy Garu, Babu Rao Garu, and all other people who are interested in putting together a nice report and work with the government. So one thing, sir, we are not just total democratic kind of mentality. We are not. We follow first democracy. Later, we include something else to make it happen. We will use courts effectively. We'll have to fight all the way. If we leave this to the government, it will not happen for sure because recently I happened to be in Nalgonda district. I'll just give you a small example so that you can understand what government is thinking. I happened to be in Nalgonda recently for another purpose. One gentleman, I don't want to name anyone because you might tag me as that party person. He said, I heard that you are here. Can you come to my place? I'm contesting. I know he's contesting, so I went to his place. I saw no men in houses. I saw only women in houses and men are in liquor shops. This is a festival period, right? And I'm not exaggerating anything. This is the fact. There were no men in the house or in houses. There were only women with kids. And when I was driving through, along with this person's assistants, because person was busy with campaigning, men were, it's like a half a kilometer line in wine shops. So I can confidently say now, this country should be run by women and not men. And I think it will move in that direction because I don't see hope in men with this kind of governance. But we will work, we will fight, sir. Definitely we'll fight. But in front of everyone, Anil Agarwal ji, I want to thank particularly Sai Ankita. Can you please come? Q&A will be there. I hope okay, you have more questions because she's already here. I will just please come. She's a very, very quiet, humble and professional lady. She looks very timid, but she's not. She looks very cultured, that's good, but she gets work done. She follows up so thoroughly. I should congratulate FTCCI also that she made that happen. So, with your permission, Agarwal ji, you have given me one flower pot. I would like to give that to Ankita.
Can I just respond to
Sure, please.
Actually, of course, it is easier for us to, limit our discussion ultimately to the government. That's what we do in every session, not only here, not only with industry, everywhere. The point I want to make is with renewable energy. He referred to 20 years of efforts. We have established in 1999 People's Monitoring Group on electricity regulation. So we have been monitoring electricity sector for the past 25 years, and we have suggested a lot of changes. I'm not going into that. So my point is, right now, national government has been discussing Electricity Amendment Act for the past 3-4 years. So my question is, where is the industry response to that? Maybe I'm wrong, FTCC. No. Yeah, from textile sector. Okay. Energy intensive.
The shirt that you are wearing, about 300 grams, it is 1 kg of that product finally by the time it is around 8 grams.
I was coming to that actually. My point was, in this discussion, I think the renewable energy, or what Dr. Baburao mentioned, we need to reduce our energy requirement. But on the other hand, we are seeing government raising energy demand and saying we have to meet this demand, and this is all these policies, all these incentives are going to feed that demand. So I think that has not come. Yeah, in all the sectors, we talked of energy efficiency. I think we had this energy committee. That lady, I don't remember, Sujat. She was mentioning they're working on energy efficiency. I said that's old. Now we need to have a leap. How we can reduce energy need. So there are creative ways. One, just one example I want to mention here and leave. Recently, US has enacted Inflation Reduction Act. And what is the relation of Inflation Reduction Act with climate change crisis? They, of course, enacted a climate change act as well. But Credit Suisse, the bank, they have issued a report saying this is a far-sighted act of the US government where they want to bring back US as a leader in renewable energy governance systems. Now I'm saying, can we be more innovative? So these kind of discussions is required. So if you can bring more participants from your membership, we can think of more innovative ways on cutting the government to size. We all need to cut the government to size because politicians, they are making money out of every one of us, and they are they are doing everything they want to do. So we can all do that. So my appeal to is, at least in this 15 days or 20 days, next 20 days, during COP27, let FTCCI take it as a serious question with involving us or without us. I don't have any problem. But you have to come up with a framework beyond TSI pass. TSI pass talks of relaxation. That's the old licensing system. You come up with a new framework where you want, these are the licensing, or this is what you want to do, and we are all there to support you. But let you have discussions sectorally or overall I think that is required, and there's no time, as he mentioned. So this is the opportunity during COP27, and don't go by World Economic Forum, which a delegation came here. I think they are not interested in Indian manufacturing. They are interested in continuing their, global governance. So if we are interested in our membership, we are interested in our consumption, we are interested in our environment. So I appeal to you to let us do that, and let us be innovative, involve youngsters, and see what kind of framework we can come up with by November 20th. Let us have that target. Thank you.
Any more questions from the audience?
What I request, as per the report of Deloitte, they indicated $35 and 3 degrees rise in the So what are the facts for us?
And the entity from each industry point of view, what are the measurable parameters they need to focus to see to what are the actually limits they have and what they need to move forward with alternative renewable energy side. This is what I seek your guidance, sir. Thank you.
No, I think we talked about 4 changes. I don't know if you were there at that time, but first is the energy. I think we need to shift the energy systems. And second is the raw materials. We need to change our raw materials. One I think I did not mention is it's not just fossil fuel based raw materials, but also chemicals. There are 62,000 chemicals. I think most of these chemicals are they also have a role in climate crisis. And of course, third is product change. We need to change our products. We are continuously pushing products which only, degenerate health, degenerate environment, so degenerate the entire trade as well. So we need to change that. And also finally, we need to see what kind of technologies help us in doing this. Now, that's where I was mentioning. Now everyone is saying we'll digitize, and that digitization will, help in climate, reducing the emissions. But it will also reduce, what is mentioned by Dr. Baburao. Only 1% of the companies will survive and all others will vanish once the digitization starts. You might see, I'll tell you in agriculture because I'm sure about it. In the last 10 years, there were 6 companies controlling seeds, and today there are only 2 companies. And these 2 companies are still smaller. Now digital big data companies are buying all the agriculture companies. Earlier it was tractors, John Deere, these are big companies. Now they are all being bought. So the consolidation of companies globally and monopolization is happening, and Google is going to enter agriculture by most of the companies, including Syngenta, including Bayer, all the big companies. So we are seeing this kind of colonization and then controlling the business, Ultimately, we want to save environment, but also we want to save, as Indra Sen Reddy pointed out, social. It has to be equity. There has to be equity in that. So we have to work on this 4, and let us see where we can make a difference with all of you, because each sector, I can tell you, textile globally, there are already entered into a agreement. In COP26, there is a fast fashion agreement, and they said we'll cut down on our virgin polymer usage. That's the first they said. That means they are not going to use polymer based as the first priority. They are going to recycle whatever they have. So these are some goals which can be set in each sector, and how that can be, we can transit towards that using our own mechanisms, our own space adjustments and incentives. I think that we have to work out. So that's a framework I think FTCCA can establish. Thank you.
Very learned speakers and passionate appeals. As Narasimha Reddy garu pointed out, COP27 is a very good opportunity to bring out more issues, and I suppose we should bring in climate emergency. That should come into the focus, because the kind of things happening, it calls for that kind of reaction. And Dr. Babu Rao garu was fervently appealing scientists all over the world coming to, working for environment. And we, the industry, are almost the polluters. But industry is a byproduct of science. The science of yesterday created industry of today. And we are looking forward to the science of tomorrow or science of today to bring us out of this. For instance, Ms. Reddy was pointing out why people are not adopting renewable energy, why DISCOMs are in a trouble to utilize renewable energy. Because there is a gap in the science. There is yet storage is not yet come. Renewable is intermittent. Neither the DISCOMs nor the industry is able to use it, fully exploit it. So the science has to bring in the storage facility so that everybody uses it. Until then, we will have to bear with some of the bad things with coal or petroleum. Ethanol is in a transitory stage. There are some bad issues, as you have pointed out, with the production of ethanol as it is today. But hopefully, the second generation biofuels, as government is saying, making a biofuel out of biomass and all these things, is less damaging to the environment, and not only for petroleum doping, but also for so many chemicals. All the petrochemicals can be made out of ethanol. That is what it is envisioned in that. So we hope the scientific community catches up with the demands of environment. The sooner, the better, sir. Thank you.
Science is commoditized today by the science that is done, most of the universities is not desirable science. Today, many universities in the US, including Pakistan, they have said we will not do any possibility research. We will not accept any funding. Earlier, they said we will not accept any defense research funding because we don't want to be partners in murder of people, killing of people. So science is for common good, for the good of the people, not for and profiting of some people. There is a base. There is also feminist science. There is also undone science. There are so many sciences that you can talk about.
Yes.
So basic problem with science is for whose sake, that whose science is it that we are talking about today? This is not people's science. We have to do science for the people. That is the science that is required. So alcohol, you are saying the second generation, third generation, it is a myth that they are creating. So you don't need alcohol for that. And what about the land? Where will it come? Where from you generate so much land to produce the food? Not giving food to the people. Why should you use food for conversion of this? Already we are using food for the animal feed and producing meat. There it is totally, you are putting in 10 calories of food and you are producing only 1 calories of meat. What is the point? This because it's all the way the business is done. You have no control over it.
Now, the one of the things about climate change that they are saying is we have to stop eating meat, particularly confined animal feed operations meat. CAFO meat should not be eaten because that is highly polluting, highly water consuming, highly energy intensive, and you are actually eating oil. You are not eating meat. The calories of coming is from the oil. That is because it, well, how do you produce grain? You're using fertilizer. Fertilizer is coming from where? From oil again. So ultimately, when you link up everything, do life cycle analysis, it is, we are eating oil only. We are not eating natural food. That's why this, particularly in science, it is very easy to put off people. You can bring hundreds of arguments away from the actual facts. You can, particularly humans are highly innovative. When it comes to matters of faith or matters of opinion, they can always defend themselves for anything. It's not easy to convince people. They have to learn it from actual experience and what is happening around the world. If they are not open-minded and not ready to learn, that's why we say unlearning is as important as learning. Our problem is from society, we have learned so many wrong things. So we have to first unlearn them. Without unlearning, we cannot learn. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Now I request Mr. Meela Jaydev, Senior Vice President of FTCCI, to propose vote of thanks.
Sir, thank you. Thank you for your kind words for Sai Ankita. Federation is also proud.
Thank you very much. Patience in listening. Very nice. Giving the presentation also is very, very nice. My privilege to propose of the hearty vote of thanks to successful conclusion of National Symposium Climate Change Impact on Indian Manufacturing Policy Change Agenda in the Energy Production. On behalf all and behalf of Federation, since thanks to Darsana Reddy Garu, K. Baburao Garu, Narsimha Reddy Garu, and Rajshekhar Garu. The deliberates have imparted more knowledge, deprivation, sustainable development through the renewable energy, COP communities and others. I also thank the members of Enrollment Committee for informed audience for their active participation. I also thank our partners, For Solar Energy Systems Private Limited, Council for the Health Leadership, Sustainability and Justice, Subhash Reddy Memorial Foundation for supporting us. I thank you very much, and I very much thank to Ankita for organizing this seminar. Thank you.
Sir, I request you to join our energy committee. We have got one committee, energy committee. So it's you can join member of our energy committee, which is very active. Mr. Shiv Kumar and Mr. Vijay Gopal, everybody, we are there. I am also there in the committee. I have been there. Yeah, I will take.
I request the Vice President, Mr. Suresh Kumar Sungar, sir, to please join, and CEO Khyati Narvane Madam to please join for the group picture, and Sai Bhaskar Reddy from Executive Director from CLS. Advisor Dr. K. Narayan Reddy Garu, please. Thank you. I request everyone to please join for the high tea.